They called it a town hall, but it felt more like a firing squad with PowerPoint. I was in the middle of reconciling vendor receipts from a 340B grant when the company-wide Zoom link lit up with a red urgency tag. That's how I met Silas Cordell. Or rather, how I was reintroduced to the species known as Coastal MBA come to save the heartland. Silas looked like the kind of guy who got his haircut at places called Craft and Blade and said things like, "Let's circle back," while blinking slower than normal. Tanned, turtlenecked, and grinning like he'd just flipped a startup for 8x in a Tesla slot. "Good morning, team," he purred, palms up, like he was blessing us. "I'm thrilled to be joining Trinex Health Systems as VP of Operational Synergy." Synergy. God help me. I watched from the 4th floor of the Aurora campus in Nebraska, where real wind still blows and people still say pop instead of soda. I sipped a lukewarm Diet Dr. Pepper and tried not to imagine Silas on a yoga mat pretending to meditate next to a Himalayan salt lamp named Chad. He talked. We listened. And somewhere between streamlined legacy processes and align with scalable impact models, I felt it, that cold little tap on the back of your neck. Target acquired. He mentioned compliance systems needing a contemporary rethink. I was the director of regulatory infrastructure. I was the compliance system. 37 licenses. 9 federal audits. 2 decades of documentation maintained so meticulously I could locate a 2007 DEA disposal form in less than 30 seconds, blindfolded if needed. I didn't flinch. Just opened a clean folder on my encrypted drive, labeled it Barbecue Ribs Recipes, and began backing up 17 years' worth of internal authorization chains. I'd seen this before. But not quite like this. Silas was slicker. He didn't bring machetes. He brought smiley Slack polls and cross-functional listening sessions. A scalpel made of vegan leather and gold-plated bullshit. That afternoon he pinged me in a shared channel. "Hey Marin, wondering if we could chat about your current workflows? Want to make sure we're future-facing." "Of course," I replied. "Sure. Just finishing up some document lineage verification. Tomorrow 9:15 work." I needed time. Not to prepare, but to watch. To confirm what I already suspected. Silas didn't understand the building. Not the one made of bricks and dusty HVAC filters, but the one made of people like me. People who didn't trend on LinkedIn, but who held the keys to the kingdom in spreadsheets labeled janitorial ordering that actually routed DEA compliance logs. The door had creaked open. He thought he was walking into an empty room. He didn't know I was the room. Silas showed up to our 9:15 meeting 4 minutes late, sipping something green and smug from a compostable cup. The kind of guy who talks in TED Talk cadences and thinks candor means, "I'm about to ruin your day," with a smile. "Marin," he said, like he'd practiced the name in a mirror. "Thanks for making time. I've been reviewing some of your documentation flows. They're comprehensive." He said comprehensive the way someone says adorable about a kid's drawing of a house on fire. "I believe in clarity," I replied. "Especially when the federal government's involved." He chuckled, as if federal compliance was a charming little side quest and not the steel scaffold our company was balancing on. Then he pulled out what he called a process realignment deck. Slide 1. From custodian to catalyst, modernizing compliance. Slide 2. Redundancy is not equal to resilience. Slide 3. A bar graph with no labels and 3 arrows pointing vaguely upwards. I'd seen this movie before. It always ends with a woman over 40 being asked if she'd like to mentor the intern who will be shadowing her role. Sure enough, 3 days later I got CC'd on an email chain titled Compliance Continuity Mentorship, Q3 Development Sprint, and an intern named Avery was suddenly tagged in on my projects. Avery. Bright-eyed. Always smiling. Didn't know the difference between a Schedule II substance and a HIPAA breach. Once asked me if our controlled substances registry was on the cloud. I didn't get mad. I got careful. I started printing. Not documents, patterns. Access logs. User permissions. Authorship metadata. Kind of stuff no one reads unless the feds are angry. I logged every change Avery made, every record she touched. Quietly, like a ghost preparing for court. By Thursday, my dashboard access had quietly downgraded. No email. No ticket. Just a little red bar where there used to be green. I asked IT. Talk to your department lead, they said. That was Silas now. I did talk to him. He smiled, blinked slow, and said, We're streamlining access to avoid overlap. You still have what you need, right? Right. That night, I logged in from a terminal no one remembered existed, in the far back of the finance annex, near the broken fax machine and the abandoned foosball table. Shadow admin access still worked. 'Cause I'd built the damn system in 2015 when no one else cared how licenses were tracked across multi-state provider networks. I pulled a full backup. Encrypted. Local. Renamed it Employee Birthday Party Photos 2012. Tucked it away. Cuts had begun. But they were slicing in the wrong direction. They thought I was overhead. But I was load-bearing. And I just removed the last bolt no one saw. By Monday, Silas had started sending out synergy updates via internal newsletters titled The Cordell Report, complete with gradient headers, stock photos of diverse smiling teams, and bullet points like optimizing the future through collaborative compliance culture. The only thing it optimized was my gag reflex. Avery now sat 2 desks down from me, chewing gum that smelled like grapefruit LaCroix and giggling during onboarding calls she wasn't qualified to lead. I watched her open the secure compliance hub, the one I'd architected, and forget to log her session out. Twice. I reported nothing. Why interrupt a cell phone in progress? Meanwhile, Silas had restructured our reporting chart into something that looked like it had been built by an algorithm on mushrooms. My role had been streamlined into something called Regulatory Data Liaison, reporting not to legal or ops but to communications. Communications. I used to sign DEA renewal forms with biometric authentication. Now I was expected to collaborate cross-functionally on regulatory storytelling. Whatever that meant. I smiled. Even thanked him in the meeting. 'Cause when someone digs their own grave, you don't grab the shovel. You offer lemonade. By Wednesday, the platform started glitching. Minor at first. Missing timestamps. Sync errors. One lab shipment delayed because an automated report didn't match the FDA submission window. Silas blamed legacy tech debt. Told the leadership team we were sunsetting Marin's old modules. They nodded. Because that's what people do when they don't know what the hell you're talking about but don't want to look dumb in front of a man wearing Allbirds. I watched silently from the back row of the conference room. The new systems were attempting to reassign credential authority without credentialed oversight. You can't just drag and drop federal responsibility. Not unless you want a rejection code that flashes invalid authority signature and gets your vendor status marked non-compliant in 14 systems simultaneously. But I said nothing. Instead, I spent Thursday morning notarizing a copy of Form 1237, Voluntary Relinquishment of Sole Licensing Oversight, left unsigned, tucked neatly in a manila folder under my desk. Insurance. Just in case they push the button. 'Cause here's the thing they never understand about people like me. I don't need to fight you in the open. I am the storm warning. And I don't make a sound until the lightning hits. It happened on a Friday. Course it did. Kind of Friday where everyone pretends they're productive while secretly Googling weekend cabin rentals and eating cookies from the HR kitchen that expired 2 weeks ago. At exactly 9:46 a.m., procurement pinged our team with a quick question. Hey, anyone know why our compliance SIR isn't validating for the Controlled Substances Logistics vendor portal? 4 minutes later, a second message. Also, FDA interface is rejecting our audit sync. License tag invalid. I watched the Slack channel light up like a brush fire. Ups was pinging IT. T was pinging legal. Legal was asking, what even is a license tag? Avery replied with, I think the system is just being weird. Might be a glitch. A glitch. Like she'd spilled LaCroix on the Wi-Fi. By 10:15, the dashboard I'd once kept spotless, green across all departments, looked like a Christmas tree in hell. Red flags. Credential errors. Missing authorities. Certifications marked orphaned. Silas hadn't even noticed. He was across campus, giving a strategic vision huddle to a group of interns too polite to ask why the projector was showing a blank slide. I walked past his glass office. He didn't look up. Still thought he was running the show. Back at my desk, I opened the quiet little folder labeled Nebraska Wellness Lunch Menu. Inside was the signed clause, Section 14D, conditional revocation trigger, tied to my employment contract since 2014. Most people thought it was just boilerplate. But if the company removed me from all credentialed roles without 30 days' notice, every active license I held would automatically enter revocation countdown. And guess what? They'd removed me in 19. At 11:02 a.m. I clicked send. To the National Licensing Authority. Subject: Formal execution of Clause 14D, revocation of credential authority, voluntary and pre-filed. No explanation. No CC. No drama. Just the match to the fuse they'd been dancing on all week. Then I shut my laptop, walked out of the building, and bought myself a coffee from the gas station down the road. Kind that tastes like burnt rubber and freedom. When I got home, I kicked off my shoes, lit a lavender candle, and watched the digital scaffolding start to buckle. They wanted lean. They were about to get bones. By Monday morning, the building smelled like old toner and slow-burning panic. You could feel it in the elevator, that stale silence people carry when they know something's wrong but don't yet realize how wrong. 8:17 a.m., the receptionist called legal. 3 auditors in the lobby. From the DEA. They want the credentialing officer. Long pause. There isn't one. Silas was in his office, pacing like a man trying to remember which wire not to cut. His phone was blowing up with messages he couldn't answer and acronyms he didn't understand. FDA. CDCHRSA. CAHO. He'd spent the weekend drafting a deck titled Future-Proofing Compliance Through Distributed Ownership. He should have titled it, How I Killed the Company with a Buzzword. At 9:42, a junior associate from legal, kid couldn't grow a beard yet, asked if anyone could just log in and switch the certs to someone else. Renee from Ops, bless her, tried to explain. Federal credentials aren't email aliases. They're tied to biometric IDs and chain of authority logs. Marin was the sole authorized signer. Silas blinked. So update it. She shook her head. You can't. The system's locked. And the federal registry shows revoked status. Temporarily, he asked. No one answered. 'Cause it wasn't temporary. It was surgical. That same hour, 3 vendor shipments were halted at ports. One flagged for non-compliant handling of Schedule 3 materials, another for missing licensing confirmation, and the third for attempted login by unauthorized user. Guess who the system had flagged? Silas. When he tried to reset the password to the credentialing dashboard, the one I had built to lock down like NORAD in a hurricane, the system didn't just reject him. Blacklisted his IP and sent an intrusion alert to the Federal Audit Mirror log. He was officially on record as an attempted credential intruder. By 2:15 p.m., Gregory Winslow, the CEO himself, flew in from Denver. Still tan from a weekend in Aspen. Still smug. That lasted 6 minutes. He walked into the ops room expecting turbulence. He found a crater. Shipments frozen. Audit failed. Clients calling hourly. I wasn't there. But my name was. Still grayed out across every screen. Still listed under Primary Compliance Officer, with a status that read, Revoked. Not replaced. Gregory turned to Silas, voice a whisper dipped in thunder. You fired the license holder. Silas stammered. She was redundant. Gregory just stared at the blinking red dashboard. Redundant, he repeated, then laughed. That slow, sinking laugh people give when they finally realize they've been bleeding out for days. The email hit my inbox at 6:04 p.m. on Tuesday. Subject: Urgent reinstatement proposal from the office of the CEO. Came wrapped in HR-approved desperation. Gregory's name was at the top. The rest was corporate word salad tossed in vinaigrette. We recognize the value of your institutional contributions. We'd like to offer a consulting role effective immediately. Bonuses tied to deliverables. Full admin access reinstated. We are prepared to be flexible. Let's rebuild together. No mention of an apology. No acknowledgement of the insult. No ownership of what they'd done, just polite panic dressed up like a second chance. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I finished folding my laundry. Ate Thai leftovers. Took a hot shower. Then I sat down at my kitchen table in clean pajamas with a glass of Cabernet and composed a reply. Subject: Urgent reinstatement proposal from the office of the CEO. To Gregory Winslow. Sissy nobody. Attachment: screenshot and revokesarts.png. Gregory, thank you for your offer. I'm sure it was carefully considered. Unfortunately, I don't return to buildings that fired me during a fire drill I designed. For clarity, please find attached a signed copy of Section 14D from my employment agreement. Confirmation of credential revocation from the Federal Registry. A screenshot of your internal dashboard 72 hours post-revocation, still listing my name. Gray means gone. I wish you regulatory peace. Marin Calloway. 3 weeks later, LinkedIn exploded. There I was. Profile photo updated. Sharp blazer. Smile like a woman who wasn't just employed, she was unbothered. New title: Executive Director of Compliance and Risk, Brannock Systems. New company, a direct competitor. New clients, 2 of Trinex's largest pharmaceutical partners now migrated after certification stalls. Caption was short. No hashtags. No clapping emojis. Grateful to be somewhere that values infrastructure before collapse. Underneath, Brannock Systems secures exclusive handling contract for Dax Med Plus SolarRx. Those were Trinex's crown jewels. Now safely in my pocket. Back at my old job, the dashboard stayed red. The vendor queue remained frozen. Audit penalties arrived daily. Silas didn't even get a goodbye lunch. Just a system update and a box from facilities. As for Gregory, last I heard he'd hired 3 different consultants to rebuild compliance from scratch. 1 quit. 1 ghosted. 1 asked for twice my rate and still said, no guarantees. I don't post often. I don't brag. I don't burn bridges. I just build better ones across the river they drowned in. Above my desk now, a yellow sticky note. No emoji. No exclamation point. Just 5 words. Let them revoke themselves. Then I sip my coffee and watch the weather roll in.